reviewing all of our states, right? I'm not gonna keep them all up there because I believe on your next quiz that you'll have, it will be our new ones. Where, sorry, there, Midwest. The Midwest new ones will be on our next quiz.
Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut,
I tricked you, didn't I?
Rhode Island, New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, Maryland, West Virginia, Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, Arkansas, Florida.
Oh, I loved it, the way you corrected yourselves whenever I go out of order.
North Dakota, Nebraska, South Dakota, Kansas, Minnesota, Missouri, Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan.
Not bad at all. I hope that's everybody. If you're not paying attention, you better start paying attention to the next quiz. I am sure that your next quiz is covering the Midwest. Oh, that's the wrong book. You know what? I must have it with me at my desk because I was afraid in somebody's test. I'll get it later though. We'll worry about it later. Alright, so let's start reading about Noah Webster. Noah Webster is well known for dictionary.
Yep.
Alright, colonial times. Noah, you must stop reading now. It's time for bed. In the morning, you have chores to do. Yes, Pa. With a sigh, 12-year-old Noah closed the almanac. How he loved to read. If only there were more books, he thought. Like most homes in the 13 American colonies in 1771, the Webster home had very few books. Even in the one-room schoolhouse, there were usually only 3 books. One Bible for all the older children to read. You should have turned the page, guys. One primer for all the younger children, and one speller for the whole class. One of the first lessons a colonial school child learned was how to share. Alright, so in this class, you all have your own copy of the Bible. You all have your own copy of a spelling book.
Yes.
A primer would have been like a phonics book, like when you were in second grade, you had
Yeah.
phonics. Okay, so that's more what a primer would have been like. Okay. Noah, along with most colonial children, could not go to school as often as he would have liked. There was always work to be done. Today, most farmers use machines to help them get their work done. But in the 1700s, the corn, wheat, and oats had to be planted and gathered by hand. Colonial farmers tried to make everything their families needed. If Noah's father wanted a new farm wagon, he and his sons built it. The family grew their own food for themselves and their animals. There was much work to be done. Even the children's help was needed. There was little time for school or play. 2,500 books. All right, that's a lot of books, isn't it? Noah had wonderful parents. They were honest, hardworking people who loved each of their children. They realized that Noah wanted to read and study. More than anything, Noah wanted to go to Yale College. I heard that there are 2,500 books in the library at Yale College. Just think of all I could learn, Noah told his father. Son, it would cost more money than I have to send you to college, and it will make more work for the whole family. I may even have to sell the farm to pay for your college education. Noah's father paused. But if you want to go, I will send you. When Noah was almost 16 years old, he left for college. He promised himself that he would work hard. He knew that his parents were making a big sacrifice for him, and he wanted them to be proud of his work. All right, let's go back to the previous page, 198, and read the important words and the important names. All right, so the first word is
Primer.
no, primer. It's primer is what you put on a wall or a piece of furniture that you're gonna paint before you actually paint it. It's called primer. But this is a primer. It's spelled exactly the same way, but this is a primer. So what's a primer? A textbook for young children. Alright? So think phonics book. That's what we would have called it. Okay, basically, to help you learn to read. Alright, then we have Noah Webster, the writer of the first American textbook and the first American dictionary. And we'll understand more what they mean by that after we keep learning about it. Then we have the Blueback Speller, the first American textbook for children, and the American Dictionary of the English Language, the first American dictionary. Alright, now go back to page 199 where it says the War for Independence. Alright? The 4 years that Noah went to college were troubled ones for the American colonies. The American War for Independence was being fought. Noah and all his classmates were excited to hear that George Washington had been chosen to lead the American Army. How the students cheered when they heard the Declaration of Independence read for the first time. There was so much excitement that it was hard to study. Becoming a teacher. Noah's parents were proud when he graduated from college, but it was hard for him to find a job. The war had made many people poor. Noah's father had to sell his farm. At last, Noah Webster decided, I will become a teacher. School still had too few books. Noah Webster shook his head and watched the older children pass the one copy of the Bible, turn the page, from one person to the next. The small children had to wait their turn to study from the primer. How much more I could teach them if each one had his own book, he thought. The need for American textbooks. With the war ending, fathers would be coming home from the army. Soon, some would send their children to school. Americans lived in a free country now, but their children were still reading about kings and queens in English school books. If America is to stay a free country, her children need to know how to read. They need to read what Americans write, not what the Englishmen write. What these children need is an American textbook, Noah Webster exclaimed. So he began to write. All right, so think about it. We're not part of England anymore. We're our own free country. But the textbooks that are available are ones that came from England. And they talk about kings and queens, not presidents, right? And what we have. All right, the Blueback Speller. Noah Webster called his first book the American Spelling Book. Since it had a blue cloth cover, it became known as the Blueback Speller. It began with simple sounds, bat, bed, bid, bob, bug. Alright, so isn't that how you started learning how to read?
Yes.
It sounds familiar, doesn't it? Top of the next page. As the student began to read words, Mr. Webster wrote truths that would help the child become a good American. And this is something he might have put in his book. This is what he said. He said, every child in America should be acquainted with his own country. He should read books that furnish him with ideas that will be useful to him in life and practice. As soon as he opens his lips, he should rehearse the history of his own country. So that was why he was so passionate about making sure that American children had books that taught them about America. All right. Mr. Webster filled the speller with other good things to read. He listed the names of different countries, what the people of each country were called, and the main city in each country. Then he listed the states, main towns, and people of America. So let's start with the country, and then go to the people, and then go to the main city in that country, and then we'll do a few of the states. But this is what he would have done in his book for the children to read. Because yes, they need to learn about other countries too, but at the same time he wanted them to learn about America. So, England, the people are English, and the main city is London. Then we have Scotland, the people are called Scots, and the main city is Edinburgh. We have Ireland. Michael, pay attention, please. People are called Irish, and the main city is Dublin. Then we have Italy. The people are called Italians, and the main city is Rome. All right, let's move on to the states. On the first state he put was New Hampshire, and the main town was Portsmouth. It's pronounced Portsmouth, not mouth. Portsmouth. And he doesn't list the people. And then he has Massachusetts. Main city or main town is Boston. And people from Boston are called Bostonians. Alright, then we have Maryland. And he lists two main towns for it. Baltimore and Annapolis. And people from Maryland are called Marylanders. So a lot of you are Marylanders. I am not. I'm a Floridian. Alright, I do want you to look at one more thing before we turn the page and read a little bit more. I want you to look back at the Blueback Speller. Now, it became known as the Blueback Speller because it had a cover that was out of blue cloth. Okay? A lot of hardbound books were covered in cloth. How many of you have a really old book at your house and you can tell that it has cloth on the outside of it? Okay? It's a hardback book, but you can tell that its cover is cloth. I think I might have one over there I can show you, but I will look in a minute. Alright, it says the American Spelling Book, then it says containing an, what does that say? Containing an,
Calvin there?
okay, it's supposed to be easy standard of pronunciation. So notice how the S in easy, it looks like an F, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Alright, isn't that sort of weird? But if you think about it, it sorta can resemble an F, but that was just something they did. But I don't understand it because in spelling, the S looks like an S. But you're gonna see that as we keep reading, you're gonna see several times where the S, they actually use the letter F instead. Alright? So it says an easy standard of pronunciation being the first part of a grammatical institute. There it is again. That F is really a S. Of the
English language.
English language. Again, that S looks more like F, doesn't it? In 3 parts. And we'll stop there, but you get the picture. Okay? So back then, printing was a little bit different, and sometimes they might make the same letter when it looks similar, be doing double duty. Alright, turn the page. Okay, we are not going to do this whole page, we're just going to do, no, we are supposed to do this whole page, never mind, so we're going to do the whole page. Children who opened the Blueback Speller for the first time were delighted. They had never had a chance to read the names of countries and cities before. For the first time, many children said, reading is fun. Millions of copies of the Blueback Speller were sold. Noah Webster did not stop with just one textbook. He wrote others too. He wrote about his country, the United States of America. He was proud to be an American. He wanted others to be just as proud. All right, there is none righteous. Who knows where that's from? Nobody knows? There is none righteous, no, not one. Michael?
Declaration of Independence?
No.
I feel like I've heard of it before.
Yes, you probably have. What does it make sense that would be from? There is none righteous, no, not one.
The Bible.
The Bible.
Oh,
Okay, from the Bible.
I just didn't know where it was.
All right. Noah Webster married a woman named Rebecca Greenleaf, a relative of John Greenleaf Whittier. All right, and in our old history books, that would have made sense to you already because we are going to learn about John Greenleaf Whittier. So he is a poet. He wrote poems, okay? So we're going to learn about him, and we haven't learned about him yet. But before, in the old book, we learned about John Greenleaf Whittier, and then we learned about Noah Webster. So it made sense when we read this. We're like, oh yeah, I know him. Well, you don't know him yet. But anyway, we'll learn about him, John Greenleaf Whittier. An American author you will learn about in the next chapter. As the years passed, they had 8 children, 6 girls and 2 boys. When he was 50 years old, Mr. Webster began to realize that he was trusting in all the good things he had done to get him to heaven. After all, he wrote good books to help children, and he loved his country. But as Mr. Webster began to study the Bible, he read verses like Romans 3:10, there is none righteous, no, not one. After studying the Bible, he realized that he must ask God to forgive him of his sins. He must ask Jesus to be his Savior. This he gladly did. The next morning, his wife and children gathered around him. Mr. Webster spoke to them from his heart. From now on, we must gather together and read the Bible every day. We must also have family prayer, he told them. His children noticed a change in their father. They knew he believed what he read to them from the Bible. Not long afterward, 3 of his daughters also accepted the Savior. And that's where we're going to stop today.